Hey everyone, welcome to this chat that we're doing today around speaking, selling, and succeeding. How to grow your business and your income through speaking. And I am here with my good buddy, Steve Sapoto, who is a speaking coach. And I'm excited to have him here. And if you are on LinkedIn watching this is my first LinkedIn Live. I'm so excited after probably 2 years, I think, of trying to get on LinkedIn Live. I finally got this. So this will be the first one. But I asked Steve to join me because Steve and I we have teamed up to do something to help people build their business, build their income through speaking. And I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. But today we're really here to just share. We want to talk about mistakes people make when they're growing their business or their income through speaking. We want to talk about questions that we get over and over again. And we want to talk about tips, things that you can walk away with today to help you make more money from speaking. So we're really talking about the money piece of speaking today. So Steve, welcome. I'm super excited to be on here with you. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me. This is really cool. So I'm looking forward to helping you on this first LinkedIn Live. And yeah, I haven't got my LinkedIn Live yet. So my application must still be sitting out there somewhere. Who knows?
Well, you have to keep applying. I did find that out. So
Oh,
yes, you have to keep applying. There's kind of a trick to it, but it does take a while for it's still sort of in a beta testing, I think. So everyone doesn't get approved for it. And so you just kind of have to keep applying for it over and over again. So a tip for everyone out there trying to get LinkedIn
yeah,
Live. But
that's a good tip right there. Keep
yeah, you and
applying.
I
I
do
thought you
lives
applied
all the
once and they
time.
put you in the file and they pulled you out when they were ready. No.
Right, right. You and I do live stuff all the time, but to do it on LinkedIn is different. So, anyways, welcome everyone. If you are with us and you're watching this, please make a comment. Let us know you're here. We always love to interact with people. And we really do want this to be a very casual chat, and we're just going to kind of share with you today. So before we do that, I just want to tell a little bit about why Steve and I have partnered together and why we have teamed up. And we do a lot of different things together because Steve comes from the speaker world. He's built a business around speaking. He also does corporate training, but his entire business for many, many years, I don't know, 30 or 40 years, something like that, I'll let him tell you, has been built making money through speaking. And so he comes from that world. I come from the world where I have always used speaking as a way to grow my business. So I have been paid as a speaker as well. And that is a piece of my business, but I don't have a speaking business. I build my business through speaking. So I'm all about selling from the stage, selling through workshops and seminars. And I come from that world. And Steve comes from just get paid to go talk. And then that's why we've really come together, because we have two very different backgrounds, but we can help people do either or. And then Steve is also a speaking coach, so he can help people become better speakers. And Steve, why don't you very quickly just introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are?
Yeah, Steve Sapoto, the most famous, unfamous speaker in America. And the reason I bill myself as that is because I have spent 40 years speaking in the industry part of speaking. You don't see me out there. You won't see my name or advertisements for me most of the time until Facebook and all this stuff started to go on, internet. But I did behind the scenes type stuff. So I worked for corporations, teaching meetings, management, employee customer retention, that type of thing. So it's not until recently that we've got the opportunity to really be out here in front of people doing what we do. And so I have been speaking for 30 to 40 years. I do offer training courses along with my training to teach people so that we can work with those companies after we've given them our best talk. So that's what it's all about to me, is learning how to be a great presenter, both in front of the audience and in the small screen here. That's when I'm pitching now that everybody's talking about Zoom fatigue, and I say there's very little opportunity for Zoom fatigue. What it primarily is boring speaker syndrome. Uh,
That's
if
his
you
whole
can,
mantra.
oh,
Stop
if you
boring
can, yeah,
speakers.
stop boring speakers. If you can speak to engage, there's a lot of people out there teaching storytelling. I teach storytizing, and the reason I teach that is because you got to take the I's, the me's, and the my's out of your talk when you're talking to other people. Is that what you do when you who's the most boring person you know at a meeting, or if you go to a party? Is because they talk about themselves. Hey, let me tell you about me. Now, there's a few people who tell great stories about themselves, and we know those few people. But for the most part, when Bob starts to talk about Bob, we're like, quit it. I've got to go find a drink somewhere.
So that's all about Steve. Great. And again, he just is awesome at what he does. My background, if you don't know who I am, my name is Ann Carden. I'm a business growth consultant. I'm a marketing and sales strategist. And I, in a nutshell, help people grow their businesses with a lot more profitability and a lot more freedom in their business. But online, I really work with coaches, consultants, experts, professional service providers who are really looking to scale their business into multiple 6 and 7 figures. And they want to do it in a way that really gives them time and freedom in their life. And one of the things that I teach them as they're leveling up their business is, look, you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to learn to sell from a stage or sell in front of a virtual audience, that you need to level up your brand, elevate your brand. And so speaking is a piece of that. Starting a podcast, all of those things are part of speaking. And that is one of the fastest ways for them to get out in front of an audience, to build an audience, to be seen, be heard, and their business will grow substantially as a result of that. Now, that's just one piece of the marketing, but that's why I'm so passionate about speaking. I have been building businesses for 30 years, and every one of those businesses I have built from speaking. I would get out, I would run workshops, I would go speak on a stage in front of business owners and in front of people that I was trying to get into my business. And so that's always been one of my main marketing mediums to really grow and scale my businesses. And I've done that through all of my businesses through the years. So that's a little bit about me.
And I'm going to jump in and tell you something about Ann that she didn't talk about. And that was when she says scale your business. One of the toughest things, even as a fee speaker, which means people go out and speak for money as opposed to selling from the stage, is how much do you charge? Right. So one of the big mistakes that we find is most people don't charge enough money. It's I think in the last 4 years, I've just come to this huge awakening. I mean, I was charging $5,000 for a keynote 5 years ago. Now I charge $10,000 because I know the value I bring, and that's what Ann
still
teaches.
Too low, Mr. Steve.
And that's what Ann brings to this. She will teach you how to scale your business, because I'm sorry, but first time I heard that somebody paid $25,000 to have somebody not write their book for them, but help them write a book, I was like, 25, you're nuts. You've lost your mind. But you know what? People do that all the time. We have to get into the place that Ann will teach you about, that helps you learn about scaling your business and charging enough for what you do. But that's one of the mistakes, is we don't know how much to charge.
Yeah,
when we talk about what we're going to help you with, that's one of the big mistakes.
Yeah,
it is. It is.
And I do help people 3 to 20 times what they are charging and land those higher value clients and contracts. So yes, that is a big piece of what I do with people, because I have yet to find anyone, I think, that I've ever worked with that we were not able to do that and help them get those higher paying clients, unless they were a startup and they didn't really know their skill or their craft. That's a whole different thing. But anyone that's been in business for any length of time, they could exponentially grow their business if they would just change how they're selling their services and how they're structuring their pricing. And that's the first thing I always look at when I work with people, so we can get them big, quick money.
So when we talk about helping you make more money, one of the things you have to learn is, what value do you bring to the marketplace? And a lot of people underestimate the value they bring. So if I were a business coach, which I was a business coach for many years, if I'm a business coach and it turns out I can change the bottom line of this one small restaurant, so the guy's only bringing home $60,000 a year, right? That's all he takes home after a year of working 80 to 100 hours a week. So when you know that, he says, "Hey, Steve, how much do you charge?" And when I would say $1,000 a month, $12,000, he's like, "Oh, I can't afford $12,000. I said, "What if I could increase your income by $40,000? Wow. Then you got to look at, so how much value am I bringing to that person? So not just this year will he make $40,000 more, but every year thereafter. Is that worth a $12,000 investment? So you have to look at, what value do you bring? Because I know a lot of business coaches are like, oh, $200 or $300 or $500. They might do a $2,000 or $2,500 total charge. And so you have to look at, what do you bring to that business? And that's one of the things when we talk about, we were going to jump in and talk about a few mistakes that people make in business, and how to improve your business, how to increase your business. That right there is one of them. What are you worth to that business? And how do you market yourself, right, Ann?
Right, right, absolutely. So, yeah, so Steve likes to go down rabbit holes once in a while. I I pull him back. I love you, Steve. It's awesome. It's so much fun. It's always so much fun when we're on here together because you never know where the conversation is going to go. But let's do reel it back to speaking for a minute. And let's do talk about, Steve, share some mistakes that you see people make in speaking. So, as you're helping them become a paid speaker or be better at speaking, what are some of the mistakes that you make? And by the way, one thing that I didn't mention or that we didn't talk about, the reason speaking is so powerful is because it's a one to many approach. You're not out there trying to get one client at a time, right? You can talk to many, many people at a time. The other thing is if you really stop and think about super highly successful people, I mean, we're talking the gurus, right? What is the thing they all have in common? They're great communicators. They're great speakers. Learning to be a great speaker and being a great communicator, it can help you negotiate better. It can help you get a better paying job. It can help you get pay raises. I mean, there's so many ways that you can use speaking in your life and in your
I think
business, right?
I think that's I'll take another rabbit hole here, but it is one of
Excuse me.
those where you think as I've got videos out, as a matter of fact, sharing that same information, which is when you're looking to buy a program, when you're looking to buy this, or when everybody's offering packages and funnels and you name it, the one thing that they don't ever talk about, which I find fascinating, is how good you have to be at presenting that information. That's what Ann was just talking about. It's great that you buy their funnel. It's great that you do this, but if you can't handle yourself on the screen, if you can't handle yourself in front of people speaking, right, you won't get those clients that they brag about all the time. It's vital that you learn how to be a great presenter. So
Yes.
along that line, a couple of things that I see if you're on stage, and I was just out in Vegas, but if you're on stage, don't ask for a huge introduction. Some people say, boy, this is how long my introduction is. Right there. This is how long my introduction. One or two sentences. Nobody wants to know about all of your credentials. Not even if you're speaking to a company. Nobody cares. They trust that the company brought you in for a reason. And one or two sentences to talk about your expertise is all that's necessary. Don't extend it. Don't try and make yourself into that person. You just present your material. And so along that line too is if you're doing lives like we're doing here, Facebook lives, LinkedIn lives, whatever you're doing, start off by telling people what you're going to be teaching, training, or showing them today. Don't start off by saying, "Hey, none of that stuff," and certainly don't thank Bob, Carol, Ted, and Alice for showing up. That's not what we want. We want to know what you're going to teach us. Then we want you
Yes.
to teach us. How many people love sitting through those 45-minute stories that these gurus on the webinars tell you? You know, I've already clicked it off 20 minutes in. I'm like, I've already done this before. And you can't fast forward, even though you know it's recorded, you can't fast forward. So another
Yes.
thing you might want to do is if you're doing a video and you're going to post it, make sure you put that little thing underneath so that they can fast forward through the stuff they don't want to listen to and hear the meat of what you have to say. Some people are like me. They just want to get to what you're going to teach us. Other
Mhm.
people say, I love to hear the stories. Give them that option.
I love that. One of the things when you kind of talk about the intro, one thing that has always, always annoyed me with webinars or trainings or anything like that is when the person goes on and on and on about themselves. You do need to build credibility. You do need to establish credibility, especially if you're doing virtual training or virtual teaching. You're on age training with people. You want them to know what your background is, right? But I like to keep it to a minute or less. If you can't do it in a minute, get over it. Because again, nobody cares about you. All you need to do is
That's right.
establish credibility and authority. That's it. Let them know your background very quickly. And so that they can know that they can trust you and that you know what you're talking about. That's really the point of that. And so do it very, very fast. And so I love what you're saying about it being an intro also, if you're speaking on a stage. So that was something that is new that I've heard for the first time. And I always learn from Steve every time we're talking. I know he always says, Ann, I learn from you every time we're talking because we come from very different backgrounds with speaking. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to share a couple of mistakes that I see people make when they are speaking. And that, especially if they are learning if they want to build their business from it and they want to make more money, one of the mistakes I see is that they don't understand that being a great presenter also means they have to have great sales skills if they're looking to make sales. So it's not just one skill that you have to be really great at. You have to be great at two skills. And it may take some additional training. It may take some additional help to be able to merge the two things together, because you don't do a lot of selling from the stage, right, Steve? I do, but you don't. They're very different skill sets, being a great speaker, being a great presenter. So you do have to understand that. So that's one of the mistakes I see people make, is they don't separate the two skill sets and say, okay, maybe I'm a great speaker, but do I really have the skills to sell and to close more sales from the stage? So realize that those are two things that you'll have to learn. So that's one mistake that I see with speaking. And then the other mistake I see with speaking is that people don't, if they are selling from the stage, so to speak, they do not establish the transparency, I like to say, at the very beginning of their talk. So one of the things that I shared at the very beginning of this today is Steve and I actually have a membership program together where we teach people how to make more money from speaking and grow their business from speaking. And we'll talk about that at the end. Now, I do that every time I talk, every time I'm in a workshop, a seminar, speaking on a stage. If I am going to be making an offer at the end of that, I want to tell them right up front, hey, at the end, I'm going to talk to you about how you can get more, how you can work with me, whatever that offer is going to be. So that's another mistake that I see people make, where they don't do that at the very beginning. Be transparent. Let people know, hey, I'm going to give you great stuff here today. You're going to get lots of good information and you're going to walk away with some great things today. But I want you to know that at the end, I am going to give you a way, if you want to work with me, to do that. Now, you don't have to do that every single time. Sometimes we just show up on Facebook or on LinkedIn or wherever, and we just offer value, and we're not making any kind of a sale or pitching. We're just establishing our expertise, and that's okay. But if you are going to do an offer, then break down that wall at the very beginning and be transparent. And then the other mistake that I see people make is that they don't figure out what that end goal is going to be for their speaking. Am I just going to get on here and share value today and give back to the people that follow me, and just that's my whole goal today? Or is my goal to sell something? Or is my goal to get people on my email list? Or is my goal to get booked on another speaking gig? Know what that end goal is, so that you can craft everything that you're doing around that. Otherwise, you're not going to get there. It's not going to happen. So those are a few mistakes that I see people make.
I think it's really vital that you understand you have to ask. That's one of the key things. When she said, when you get there, you have to ask for the sale, ask for understanding, ask for all this stuff. When I was just in Vegas, like I said, and they asked, when I took the gig, they said, well, what will you be teaching our people? Right? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants you to convey something. So I put out what I was going to be offering, what they were going to be learning from my talk. And that's important, that by the time you get to the end, you've helped them with those 3 or 4 things. And then you recap it at the end saying, I hope you understood this. If you don't, please connect with me. I hope you got that. If you have any questions about this, please reach out to me. And those are the things that Ann talks about too, is that we have to be able to say, did we get what we promised you? And how much is that worth? Now, with her selling from the stage, obviously, and it's really cool, because when you start to become aware there's a difference, you don't know you've been sold sometimes. Ann is so good that you'll go, wait, I want to buy that, but I don't think she ever asked me to buy it. She didn't say, hey, run to the back of the room and pick up my whatever it is, right? Which some people do, which means obviously they've done it wrong. Because most of the time it's, hey, what value are you getting from this? Maybe we should work together. And they do it so well that you end up going, I think we should work together. Now, obviously, that's still me. I mean, I teach public speaking. I teach people how to be great presenters, how to make more money in speaking. And you have to offer the same kind of things, but it's not like when you sell from the stage. It's really quite a technique.
It is a technique. It definitely is. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the tips section of what we're talking of our chat here today.
We got a chat going on. You guys think we're professional speakers, but
yes, I know. Sometimes we can't talk. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about. I love. So we gave you 5 mistakes we see people make there. So if you are taking some notes, or you can go back and watch this. Steve, let's talk about some questions that you get over and over again with people that you're coaching on speaking, or people that want to become a paid speaker, or whatever. Name a couple. Talk about a couple questions that you get. Then I'll talk about a couple things that I get over and over again.
I think the biggest question I always get is, how can I be as good a speaker as you? Now, I'm not bragging on that. It's people love to be good at speaking. And when they say, how can I become as good a speaker as you? And I try and tell them it's practice. It's practice, practice, practice. Now, I always qualify, because it's like anything else. I played golf for 30 years. I haven't played now for 8 or 10, but I played golf for 30 years. I never hit a 300-yard drive. I never did this. I never did. And I was like, when the people next to me would do that stuff, and I kept going, why? And then one day somebody said, how many lessons have you taken? Well, none. How much practice did you do on the putting green? Well, none. Right. So I thought, because I played golf and I hit the same swing every week, that I should get better. That's the same with speaking. If what you're doing is speaking and you're using the wrong style, the wrong technique, the wrong words, the wrong this, you're not going to get better at it. You're going to be doing the same thing over and over again. When you want to get better at something, you have to practice, but you have to have somebody who teaches you the right way to do things. And that's vital for your success. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what sport you're in. I don't care what entity you're in. If you practice the wrong things, you will stay good at the wrong things. And that's really important when we talk about the questions I get is, Steve, how do you get that good at speaking? Well, first of all, you should hire yourself a coach. You should hire somebody who really knows what they're doing, and they can help you build what I call a signature talk. My signature talk is a 50-minute speech on, right? And yours has to be that good where you've got it down. The other thing is, people ask me, they go, Steve, should I memorize my speech? Now, almost every speaking coach I've ever talked to says, absolutely not. I'm the exact opposite. I say, absolutely. You have to memorize your speech. You have to get it down. And you don't get it down so you don't make a mistake. You get it down so you get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I tell you to forget it. Forget it. People go, what? I go, I don't want you to memorize it. I want you to put the papers away or whatever you're using, and I want you to tell me what your talk is about. And they go, well, it's about this. And I go, that's your story. Most of us don't understand that people love to hear stories, right? But they don't want it written to us, like Steve Sapoto, speaking coach. They don't want it that way. They want it in a story format, which means you've learned it so well that if somebody interrupts you, you don't say, gee, I wonder where I left off. I forgot where I was. If you've got a story now, and if you were talking to my wife, she'd say, he's got 4 stories that I'm so tired of hearing, right? Don't tell that one, Steve, please. But I don't care what happens. Somebody says, hey, Steve, finish that story. I can go right back to that story. Why is that? Because it's my story. I live it. I breathe it. I know it. And that's true with every talk you give. You should know it well enough so that if somebody interrupts you, you can go, oh, I don't care. Let me go back to the story and tell you and finish it. That's really important. So when they ask, hey, should I memorize my talk? The answer is yes, and then forget it, because we want it to become part of you, not you become part of the talk. And so those are a couple of the questions that I think I get the most.
Awesome. That's phenomenal. That's excellent information. So thank you for sharing that. A couple of questions that I get is, how do you go from giving this great presentation, people are excited, they've been just eating up everything that you're saying, and then you have to switch into sales mode? Ooh, it's like this, this silence in the room, right? And so people ask, how do you make that change without it feeling icky or really uncomfortable for you and uncomfortable for everybody in the audience? So that's a question over and over again that I get. And the answer to that is, there is a technique to doing it in the right way so that you really aren't switching. You are, but you're not. So one of the things I talked about is at the very beginning, break down the walls. Let them know, hey, I'm going to share with you at the end. If you love everything you get here today, I'm going to share with you at the end how you can work with me or how you can go deeper. I'm going to share an offer with you that you might be interested in. That's a really simple way. But then throughout your entire presentation, you should be doing what we call seeding. And that means with technique, you are actually building excitement for them to want to go deeper with you into that talk or into that presentation. So when you get to the end, it is so simple and say, hey, remember at the beginning where I shared with you that I was going to give you a way to go deeper? Let me talk about that right now. And you just made this simple transition that it doesn't feel weird to anybody because they're already expecting it. So that's one thing that I hear over and over again. And then the other thing that I hear is when you are talking virtually or you're speaking virtually, should you use your hands? I do. All right. I think it adds interest. What do you think, Steve? I don't think we should sit here like a robot, and be just a talking head. So
I offer a certified virtual presenter program, as you know, and that is one of the big things. So I use my hands even when they're not on camera. So I mean, I sit pretty close to my camera. I could, be backed up and then you'd see me a lot more animated, but it's a conversation. And let me ask the question then to answer hers. If you talk, do you use your hands? And the answer is almost all of us say yes. Therefore, to go with Ann, then you have to use your hands. Go ahead, Ann. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's fine. I mean, we wanted this to be a back and forth chat. So no, it's all good. I do. I might use my hands more than I need to, but it's very natural speaking for me. And even when I'm speaking on a stage, one of the things that kind of holds me up, is if I'm holding a microphone, but I'm talking, I use my other hand. So I think that, yes, people want you to be natural. How would you naturally talk to people? You don't stand there like a robot and you speak or present, right? That just isn't natural. So be natural, be yourself, be authentic, and don't be so in your own head that you can't show up as you. I think that's a really important thing too, a little outside of, the questions people ask. But I think it's really important. We make mistakes. We might say something wrong on here. Every time I go back and watch a presentation or a video or a live that I did, I'm like, oh my gosh, I said that wrong. I didn't say that right. You can't get hung up on things like that. You just show up. You have to be, I hate the word be your authentic self because we hear it so much, right? But it's really true. Show up, let people get to know you. That's what they're there for. And then share your expertise. And it doesn't always come out perfect, but it's okay, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things when people ask me questions, one of them is, how do you get over stage fright, Steve? How do you do that? And that's exactly what she just said, which is record yourself, watch yourself, and then critique yourself. Don't say, oh man, you suck, you're horrible. No, say, hey, I did that pretty good, but you know what? I really need to improve this and this and this and this. And it's important that the more you record yourself, with as much as we have selfies and Facebook Lives and all these stuff, people still, if you go to take their picture, they'll stick their tongue out or make a face, or they've got the new emoji things that come up since you got horns on your head when you're doing a live. Stop it, right? People want to know and see you, and it's vital that whole thing happens because you're natural. So when you're watching yourself, I was just watching somebody on a TED Talk. Now, I do speaker talks, which is competition for TED Talks. But I was watching somebody at TED Talks who really bragged that they were a quality speaker and really good. And then I watched them absolutely, the TED Talks has that circle thing on the floor.
The dot. It's the dot. Stand on the dot. Yes.
And they would walk up to the edge of the dot and then talk. And then they would turn around and walk back to the other edge of the dot and talk. And then they'd walk to another portion of the dot and talk. And I went, did they choreograph you? Did they ask you to do? Did they teach you how to move? And they went, no, why? And I was like, that's weird. When in your whole life have you ever walked up to a place and then when you're done talking, you walk to another place and talk? When you have that conversation, you stand there and have a conversation, right? So when you record yourself, you want to get past stage fright, record yourself. Start listening to your voice. As much as most of us hate our voice, right? Start watching yourself. I'm 40 pounds overweight. Did I like watching myself this last week on the recorded version of my talk in Vegas? No, I'm like, what happened to your belly, Steve, right? So could I improve that? Yeah, drop 40 pounds. Am I going to? Probably not. You can keep disliking part of what you see and
you're
still
going to have every fitness coach now messaging you, Steve. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, they can use me as an example. If it's free, we'll work together. How's that? Yeah, I'll prove that your theory works. How's that?
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, so I mean, Stage fright is just you getting used to being you.
Yes, I agree. Awesome. So we want to kind of stay on time here. So let's share some tips. What are some tips, Steve, that you can give that people can take away today to become a better presenter or maybe get paid as a speaker? Anything that you want to share at all? Share a couple and then I'll share a couple. And then if anyone has any questions, you can throw those questions down there and if we can see them, we'll answer them for you. So Steve, go ahead, take it away.
Well, I think I can throw lots of tips at you for doing lots of things. The first is, if you want to be a speaker, get out there and start speaking. That's number one. Everybody will tell you that.
Speak for food.
I spent the first 2 years of my life speaking for food. So people bought me dinner and I did a dinner speech.
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand that.
I was just going to say too, when you're starting, speak everywhere for free. It doesn't matter if you're in front of your ideal clients, in front of your audience, just go out and get the experience, right? And that's what you're talking about. Speak
That's
for
right.
food. Let them feed you lunch. Go speak. Rotary Club. The Rotary Club's probably not your ideal audience, right? Or Kiwanis, but go out and speak to them because you'll gain that experience and you'll get more comfortable.
And face the rejection. I did something about 3 months ago that I hadn't done in 20 years, which is somebody said, "Hey, Steve, there's a Rotary Club that's looking for a speaker." And like you say, I know that you speak for free to that. So I reached out to this person and said, "Hey, I heard you might be looking for a presenter. I would love to offer my services." And then I gave them a little quick, 5-sentence thing, said, "I'm a speaker. I've been doing it for 40 years. So let me know." And they wrote back and said, "What do you talk on?" Which of course you hate, because what do you need to hear about? So there's all kinds of things, but we went through, I said, well, I can talk on any kind of management. I can talk about relationships, how men and women communicate differently, lots of different things. And they wrote back and said, "Well, we don't pay." I said, "I understand that. I understand you guys are a free organization. So I'm offering, a 30-minute talk for free." And they wrote back and said, "Okay." That was it. So I wrote to them again and said, okay, does that mean you need me to speak? Does that mean we need to set a date? And you know what? I never heard from them again. And I was like, well, I'm not going to work that hard for a free gig.
Right.
I was doing you a favor, but face the rejection. So even if somebody says something to you. So, and also when Ann said speak for free, one of the tips I'm offering is never speak for free. Always speak in lieu of a fee. So if they say, "Hey, how much you charge?" You go, "What are you paying?" Right? They go, "Well, we don't pay." You go, "Oh," and they give them your face. "Oh man, you don't pay. What's that all about?" Now, you've never spoken before in your life. It's okay. You go, "Oh, well, you know what? In lieu of a fee, what could we work out?" Well, maybe they'll say, "Hey, we'll buy you dinner." There you go. You're off and running. Or we could record you. We have somebody, you might ask them, "Do you have somebody in the group who's a photographer or somebody who's a videographer?" And they'll go, "Well, Bob's kind of a photographer." You go, "Great. If Bob will take 30 photos of me, I'll speak in lieu of my fee. I'll speak for photography." Right? And they go, "Oh, that's cool." So always try and make a deal in lieu of. Don't speak for free.
And that is such a valuable, gold right there, gold, because you can leverage any speaking gig to benefit you and your business to move you further. So, speaker reels, get a clip of you speaking, get pictures of you speaking. All of those things can be leveraged down the road to get more speaking engagements. And so that is a very, very powerful tip that he has just shared.
Yeah, because when next time somebody says, "Hey, do you speak or are you a speaker?" You can include 6 still photographs from 3 different places you spoke and say, "Here are the last 3 places I spoke." And you say, "One's in down here in Florida, one's in Bradenton, one's in Sarasota, one's in Tampa," right? So now they're like, "Oh, they get around," and again, credibility. That's what we're after, credibility.
Yes, absolutely. Great tip. Great tip. Anything else you want to share?
Oh, like I said, I could go on with tips for a long time, but go ahead.
Okay, now we'll have to do another one. All right. So one tip that I want to share, and Steve kind of hit on it, but I want to elaborate a little bit more, is every time you are speaking, whether you're running your own workshop, running your own seminar, speaking on a stage, it doesn't make any difference. If you can pull out your iPhone and you can get people on video saying how wonderful you were and how much they loved you talking, blah, 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 that is great marketing material, everyone. So how can you get testimonials about your speaking? And even if you are going to, let's say you're going to run a workshop over and over again, by getting testimonials in the workshop, you can use that in your marketing materials to book your next workshop. So that's a really key piece that people forget. And I'll be honest, I've been guilty sometimes of forgetting to do that too. You kind of get wrapped up in the moment, and then you're having conversations with people at the end of your talk, and then you sort of forget that piece. So one thing that you can do is, if you can have someone do it for you, set that up in advance, where maybe you've got an assistant. If you're running a workshop, you've got an assistant there with you, or you've got someone helping you with that workshop, and have them do that so that you don't forget to do that. But that's one tip that I would give, because all of that can be leveraged in your marketing. It builds that credibility and that trust.
I'm going to jump in there too. I finished up speaker talks here 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was just conversing with the photographer. So I had a videographer and I had a photographer taking pictures, and I said, "Hey, Tom, sure appreciate all the hard work you did and everything you did, blah, blah, blah." And he went, "Steve," and then he gave me this wonderful testimonial. Now, I don't think he meant to. It was, "I learned so much. I got so much. I gained so much." It was because he's been with me for 3 years now. He said, "This was probably the best event ever." Wow, how cool is that? So even after the fact, if you're talking to somebody who is there and they give you an accolade, whether it's 1 sentence or 3 sentences, cut it.
Yes.
Post it, paste it to your stuff. Exactly what Ann was saying, right?
Yes. Yeah, you can use it all. You can use the text, and even if you're getting video, it's great. But you can also strip the text from the video, from the testimonial video, and then you can also use that in marketing materials. So you can leverage that lots of different ways. You can take a quote that somebody gave you, maybe not the whole testimonial, but maybe you just pull out one line, a quote, and you use that. And all of that can be used in your marketing materials everywhere: landing pages, your website, with your sizzle reel, all of those types of things. But it's a really, really powerful way to leverage what you're doing. I have to, let me see if I have it here. One of the last speaking gigs I did, I don't have it in front of me, but they sent me a really cool card thanking me and all of this at the end. And they had a picture of me standing in the stage with my microphone, and then behind me, it said "Our speaker today," and it had my name, and it had my photo that I use all the time on my marketing. And so it was a really powerful backdrop. And I'm able to use that and repurpose that over and over again. So
that's a really
powerful.
good point. You might want to take a photograph, and all the new software can strip your background away, right? So you strip everything away, and you can put your own headline behind you on that stage. So you can do so much now that makes you look so good. And it's really important that you understand that how people perceive you. Now, here's the problem. If you do all these wonderful visual things and then you suck as a speaker, they're not going to hire you back, and they're not going to recommend you.
You won't make any money either. You have no money.
That's right. No money. And that's what's important, is not only do you have to have the tools that make you look good, but you have to learn how to be that great presenter. Ann's information on how to sell from the stage, my information on how to be a great speaker, and storytize that thing so that your audience is actually engaged. How many people have ever sat through a boring presentation? And think about it. I want you to think about why. The next time
I've probably given a few of those, to be honest. We all have to learn, right?
I tell the one story, Ann, and I'll make this real short because I can make it a 5-minute long thing. But I was talking to this group. Long story short, the guy in the front was like, now, whether he had a long night or what he had, right? I mean, it was just hired in to give a talk. So this was not my ideal client or anything. And this guy kept nodding, and I was like 6 months, 7 months into speaking. Yeah. And all of a sudden this guy falls out of his chair flat on the floor. I'm like, oh. And of course, everybody thinks he had a heart attack, so they rush to him. He stands up going, "Sorry, I fell asleep." Well, now 30 people know that Steve Sapoto put this guy to sleep. So you're like, oh man.
Hey, we all have stories like that. So that brings me to a funny story. So it's important too that people realize, hey, it's not always going to be perfect. So I remember speaking at a chamber one time when I was first kind of starting speaking, and what I was talking about wasn't going to be relevant to everyone in the room. It just wasn't. Everybody wasn't in a business, right? And I remember the fire chief, because they have the principal show up from the school.
Oh, yeah.
So they have all these, the hospital administrator, all these people that business isn't something they really care about. I remember the fire chief sitting back in his chair, had his arms folded, and it was, of course, I'm speaking right after lunch, right? So they'd all just eaten, and he sat there and he was asleep the whole time. I was talking about business and success, and I'll never forget that. But it's a funny story that I talk about now. And so the whole point of this is every speaker, everyone who's ever done any speaking, they all have stories like this. They all have funny stories. It's going to happen. It's, it is just the nature of getting out there and presenting. And, so this has been so much fun. Very quickly, before we wrap this up, Steve and I do have a membership group that we do together. And in that group, we do live actual trainings, real training every single week in that group live. And we also have a lot of other materials and things in there, speaker one sheets, and a lot of things that people are going to need if they're going to go out and speak. We teach you how to sell from the stage. All of those things are part of that group. So if you're looking to really use speaking to grow your business or grow your income or become a paid speaker, again, Steve comes from one side of that business. I come from the other side. And we have put together a membership group, and it's a monthly fee. You pay monthly. There's no contract. But if you are interested in that, and we're not really here to do a big pitch, we wanted to just show up, have some fun, give some value. But if you are interested in really becoming a good presenter, learning how to make money from speaking and being a good presenter, then that group might be a great fit for you. So you can reach out to me, and then I will get you the link to go and check that out and get into that group if you would like to. And we're just getting it up and going. So it's brand new. But there's a lot of great materials.
I'm going to ask the question on that, which is, speaking brings you confidence, it brings you visibility, it brings you notoriety, right?
Yes.
So any opportunities and success. So how much would you pay to be more successful? I was just reading a quote, and I've been using it for a zillion times over the last 3 months, which is Warren Buffett said, you want to increase your value, you want to increase your personal value and your value to your company, become a better public speaker.
Oh, wow. That's so true.
It's huge.
It's instant credibility. It's instant credibility and authority. I always say, I don't want to be the person in the room. I want to be the person at the front of the room, because it's instant credibility and authority. And so it's something that when you master the skills, and we'll never be perfect, right? We'll never be phenomenal at it. I'm sure Steve looks back at some of his talks and still sees things he could have done differently or better. That's just the nature of this, right? But
you just hurt my feelings that I could be.
No, okay, so Steve is perfect. So learn from him. I'm not. So this has been fun. This has been a blast. I know you have to go. I have a busy day. You have a busy day, but this has been so much fun.
Thanks a lot, Ann.
Connect with Steve. If you need a speaker coach, if you're interested in that membership, you can connect with me. I'll get you the link for that. And this has just been a blast being with you. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments, and we go back, and always go back and check the feed, and we'll answer your questions. And we would also love to hear what you thought of this. So we are getting some comments here. Testimonials are key. I can put it on my newsletter and blog. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. People loved it. So Steve, this has been great. So thank you all so much for being here. And until next time, you all have an amazing day. Go rock your business and elevate your brand and get those premium clients. Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
My pleasure, Ann. Thanks. God bless everyone.
You too. Bye-bye.